Thanks for joining us today, everybody. So little rules we want to set up so you'll understand. We're going to take the first segment of this and do the procedural changes and the policy changes that are coming about, so you'll know. I want to introduce a few people we have on with us today, so you know. Michael Cochran, if we have any lending questions, Michael Cochran from CMG will help us out there. I think you've got a few people wondering how this will affect commissions. We might be getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. We also have David Bennett on with us today, guys. We want to thank David so much for being a part of this. Thank you, David. I realize I want to preface this with David may not be able to share everything with us today because we scheduled this thing about a week ago because a lot of calls were coming into the office, and we didn't know that Florida Realtors had just scheduled their update tomorrow. I want to encourage everybody to take advantage of that. I see Stellar is also having an update too. This will be ongoing. This will be fluid, and we're going to move forward in that capacity. So I want to let you know we got David, we've got Michael, Amir. You guys, Amir, my right-hand man. You all know Amir. You call in the office, you talk to him. He is the boots on the ground and hearing everything. One of the benefits of being a part of a large brokerage is we get to see things early because of the sheer numbers of what's going on out there. So David, again, I want to thank you for being here today. Really appreciate it. We will have your mic on and Michael Cochran's mic on. We, as far as questions go, guys, we want you to start about 30 minutes in. You can type your question. You can raise your hand, but if you type it, we'll get a chance to vet it out. If you start asking questions now, they might get lost in the thread. Byron and Lori are back there vetting out the questions for us. So what we need to do today is dispel some of the myths that we've heard. So Amir, what are some of the crazy calls you're getting about people hearing things?
Well, you know, we hear everything out there. And, you know, a lot of it comes down to that when this came out on, you know, not last Friday, the previous Friday before that, there was a lot of, misinformation getting put out there.
Yeah.
You know, of course, NAR put out the actual statement and, you know, the frequently asked questions and things along those lines, which is great. But then the news and media takes that and puts a completely different twist on it. And that's what our customers are hearing.
Yeah.
So, and then they're, of course, they're coming to you. And I think, you know, moving forward, obviously, us as agents and realtors in the industry, we need to be that voice of information and telling them, you know, educating them on how, or, you know, what is correct and what isn't correct. So, you know, that's what Mike and I kind of want to do today is go through and dispel some of those myths out there. But, you know, we hear everything from, buyer's agents are going away. Well, I think that's going to happen. You know, yes, there are a couple key factors there where, you know, the way commissions are going to be handled is going to be different.
That's right.
But at the end of the day, it's business as usual.
It really is.
For the most part, it's just how it's going to get there. So,
yeah, exactly.
You know, so Mike and I are going to go through that a little bit. And like you said, you know, thank you, David, for jumping on here with us. And of course, Michael Cochran, our preferred lender, you know, will be here to answer any questions, you know, because that is another big aspect. And one of the big questions we get is what's going to happen with FHA buyers? What's going to happen with VA buyers?
That's
because those buyers can't pay certain fees and whatnot. So we really need to get some answers. And Michael may not be able to answer those right at this moment, because I think as when this ruling or when this settlement came out, and that's the whole thing, it's a proposed settlement. You know, the news and media came out there and said, this is the settlement. And very likely, probably, it is going to get accepted. But right now, it's just a proposed settlement. It still has to be approved by the courts, and that could take months. And I think just the collateral damage that comes along with that is the mortgage industry just hasn't had time to figure out how they're going to allow commissions and buyers to be able to pay those and things along those lines.
Adjust and adapt. So guys, this settlement, the verdict came back on Halloween, trick or treat. You know, that came out. So since that day, I will tell you, pretty much every morning, I wake up thinking about how this is going to affect our business. What I want each and every one of you guys to know, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, we're all in this together. We're gonna get through it just fine. You got to give us a little confidence and space to adapt as things are coming out. David's here. David, there's going to be new forms coming out. We're going to talk about that. You're probably going to hear quite a bit about that tomorrow. But we have been watching this for 4.5 years, 5 years now since it really started. And then the settlement came out on Halloween, or the verdict came out, and then we hear this settlement. You know, I don't take a lot of days off. I happened to be off that day when the settlement came in. I started getting messages from all over the country. Lori sent me the article right off the bat, and I was at a game with my daughter, a spring training game, and I go, oh my goodness, here we go. So what we want to do is give you guys some procedural information today as to what we know in the terms of this agreement. We're going to keep it specific to you guys. There's stuff at the brokerage level. David certainly has stuff at his level. Florida Realtors has stuff at their level that has nothing to do with you guys. And we don't want to bog you down with us. That's our burden, and we'll handle that. You guys need to know what's going on. So first of all, let's talk about the rule changes.
Right.
All right. Number one, first and foremost, you're going to have if this proposed settlement, the terms of it is accepted, you're going to have a signed buyer's agreement in place before you show the property, an MLS property. That's going to be a rule that comes down through them. That agreement before you show the property, so no more run into a property, and you know, it's going to help a lot of people, I believe.
Absolutely, it's going to reduce the amount of looky-loos out there.
Yeah.
The agents, the phone call that I get quite often is, I'm a Zillow agent. All my leads come from Zillow. How is this going to affect me? Well, it is going to affect you. And you're going to need to bring it back to slowing your business down a little bit. Coming up with a very good talk track on how to coach your buyers. And, just like if you got a listing lead, you take your time, you get the information, you set up an appointment, you go meet with the lister. It's going to be the same deal with buyers. Now you got to slow things down a little bit. You got to have a buyer consultation with them, really articulate what value you're bringing to them. And, talk about your agreement in writing. What are the dates? What are the fees? What, everything that's going to be put into writing there. So, I think at the end of the day, it's going to be a good thing for everybody.
I do too. There's going to be some side benefits from this to the industry as a whole, but we're going to have to work through the pain of getting there and the pain of change. So I will tell you this, guys, if you're, the day for, stewing and commiserating and complaining, that day is over. Today is the day to move forward. Now, I will say this, we're still in a little purgatory here because as the new rules aren't in place yet. They will be soon. Start getting prepared for them. The date that they're shooting for is mid-July to have these changes implemented. So we need to start getting ready for them now. I can tell you here at Ruttenberg, we have already, or if not today, it will happen very soon. Buyer's agreements will be a field on the buyer side of the file. It's going to be, we're not going to enforce that until probably mid-July, but you need to start using them. That agreement that you're going to have with a buyer is going to have to address compensation. We want to be very clear about that. So the buyer and you are going to agree. Now, there might be several ways down the road that you negotiate your side of that commission, the buyer's side, or the buyer's agent side of that. So it's going to have to be clear. That's part of what the statement of interest that DOJ wants is we want clarity in the industry. And I will tell you, quite honestly, we haven't done a real good job of explaining to the general public of what we do and how we do. I've taken my own little survey here, talking to people that have sold 3 or 4 homes in the last 10 years or so. They still don't really understand it. So this is going to clear that up for us. People will completely understand what's going on. Now, I want to address something else that has been brought to our attention too. Once you enter into that agreement for a fixed amount or a certain amount for representing your buyer, you're not going to be able to make more than that. So let's say you wind up putting the deal together and now a third party, they like to call it, that third party to the transaction, which to you at that point would be the seller or the selling agent, the listing agent. If they offer you more than you already have and you're not going to be able to take it. Now, you can always take less if you enter into an agreement with somebody for a certain amount or a certain percentage, and it doesn't wind up working out that you can negotiate that much, you can always take less. you're not going to be able to make more. That's part of what the DOJ wanted. David, all you got to do is raise your hand anytime you got something to chime in on, because I know you're a wealth of information over there for us, friend.
Did a great job. So, yeah, just a little background on this, and again, like the NAR president, and the NAR president Kevin Sears is a working realtor, just like you all. He has a very few agents in his office, and he's kind of been thrust into the spotlight. And I really felt bad for him because he apologized to basically all our members the other day in a video about something that really wasn't his fault. Someone leaked the information. NAR had a plan to get this out to the members. And so we were following the rules from the judge. And the judge says nothing can be released to a certain date. And we held to that. And of course, lo and behold, the press got it and put it out. Probably came from the other side. Wouldn't have come from our side because we had a plan to notify our members. And so I appreciate him, being a practicing realtor. He makes his living day by day doing transactions. And so, but Mike is right. It's all about this whole lawsuit was all about, other than a money grab for our lawyers, it was, and I apologize if there's a lawyer in the room here or on the Zoom, but the class of people who were interested in this, they're going to get nothing, basically. They're going to get a couple bucks out of this. But it was all about this lawyer's push that this process is not transparent. And so, unfortunately, I feel like it's going the wrong way. I think the way you guys do things today and organized real estate, the way it is today in the MLS, it's efficient. It's super, super smooth for consumer. And I never doubted. I've had 7 transactions, and just because I work for you guys, I do have some inside information to understand. But my realtor member treated me just like everybody else and informed me of the process, how the payment of commission is getting divvied up among the 2 parties. And so just keep that in mind that, everything we're about to talk about seems so much less transparent than it was before. But it really is on you all to make sure that with these written agreements, and we hope that, I guess tomorrow during Florida Realtor session, that Joanna Watkins, our chief counsel, will talk about the changes that will be made to the buyer broker agreement and how it will need to work. And doesn't mean that it can't be modified. So like Mike said, if you have something there, your buyer was going to pay you, and the seller has finally agreed that, hey, no, I'll go ahead and pay. I need to get rid of this home because my wife and I just bought another one and we don't want 2 mortgages for a month or whatever. Right. And they come up to the plate with the buyer's side commission. That can be communicated. And then in that document can be amended to say, the buyers understand that the commission will now be paid from the seller, and that this buyer broker agreement will be made whole through the seller's concession of the commission. So it doesn't mean that we can't adapt and change as things happen. We just don't know now what will happen with, I saw some very pointed questions, and they're really good questions. I'm not sure we have the answers today, but what it will look like when you do an open house, what it will look like when you show a property and you haven't been able to talk to the seller to say, hey, my buyer really needs you to chip in on this commission in some fashion or in the whole. And if you show that property, you may or may not make a commission. So because there's no guarantee of commission, sure, because it's not in the MLS. So those are things we're gonna have to iron out, like with commission agreements. Do you have to have a commission agreement before you show that property now? If the seller is willing to pay, because it won't be communicated in the MLS, and then the MLS is what we use. So if 2 realtor members have a conflict, we use the MLS system to say, this is what the seller offered, and this is what it was in the MLS, the date that the offer was presented, and that's what it is, and that's what everybody gets paid. So that mechanism that's made this smooth for everyone won't exist. And so it will be all these off agreements that will have to be vetted out. And it makes it more complicated for Michael's group, for you all at the company, and for us, because we do professional standards. So how do we vet out all these things? What if there are two commission agreements and both same signatures on them? Trust me, we've seen all kinds of things. We've seen seniors who have signed two listing agreements with two different brokers because they had some dementia issues. Well, now they're on the hook for two different commissions. And so it's going to be a process of us trying to figure out how to best handle these type of situations, and the situation with the open house. Somebody walks in an open house, it gets more complicated now. If you end up representing them, well, the MLS said it was X%. That's what you get. Super easy. But today we don't have that assurity. And so that's the other rule that will be put in place, is that there can be no mention of commission within the MLS or any derivative of the MLS. So we don't know what that means yet. Does it mean Supra is a derivative? It's not part of the MLS. So could we communicate something through Supra, like a commission agreement real quick, where you could click on your phone and sign a commission agreement, 2 seconds? Showing time, well, that's a part of the MLS. So we're assuming that everything that's in the MLS, we're not going to be able to use any of those mechanisms. So how do we help you get this transaction pulled together efficiently for the consumers, what we've always done before? Very, very super efficient process that we have in the United States. So I'll leave it at that and we can carry on.
Yeah, thanks for jumping in, David, and I suspect there's going to be many more. I want to go over the rule changes as we know them first. You just addressed it. The MLSs will be forbidden from putting an offer of a unilateral blanket offer of compensation in there. There's some suggestions that there's going to be different types of, not workarounds, but to keep us legal. I don't like to use the word workaround, to keep us legal, that maybe the seller concession field. We'll talk about that a little bit down the road. David, I would like to tell you, I went out for some food the other day, and with that food I got a little cookie, and that cookie, I opened it up and had a message, and it said, "May you live in interesting times." Well, I think in the real estate industry we live in interesting times. It's going to be fluid and it's going to be changing. So that's the rule 2 that I've gone to. You're going to have, so stay with me, guys. You have to have a signed buyer's agent agreement to get MLS, to have access to the home. You're going to go show somebody property. That's going to be happening looking around July. You don't have to go do it this afternoon if you start to show properties. Number 2, the unilateral field of the unilateral blanket offer of compensation to buyer's agents is going to be removed from the MLS. We know that. That's not going to change. I think part of the settlement may get negotiated on the money. I think the terms are pretty much agreed to. I think it might be the money still. Now, here's what I want you guys to get excited about. The statement of interest has made it very clear from the Department of Justice that the seller can still absolutely pay a buyer's commission. It just can't be conveyed through the MLS, through a third party. That's the antitrust stuff that they clung their teeth to and got it through. So don't get panicked. It really, do I see a percentage of transactions that don't pay a commission? The seller does not pay a buyer's agent commission. I do. I see a few. I see them out there. The value of not offering that to them will probably be felt by the seller at some point, because you don't have all the eyes that you really want on it. You haven't incentivized the right people. Now, the MLSs are rolling out, and David, I know you're not the MLS, so I know some of them. I haven't heard anything from any Florida specifics, but I can tell you several of them, more than one, is rolling out what they call a seller concession field. We also know in 2023, 50% of the transactions had some sort of seller concession. Maybe that was $5,000 for a roof, or maybe that was X amount of money for some flooring cost or whatever. So I want you to think about this, guys, before Byron can laugh at me here, but the sky's not falling. You're just going to have to adapt a little bit. So if the sellers, 50% of them have already been offering a concession. This is MLS properties that we searched and know that. They also were offering an offer of compensation. So if you remove the offer of compensation and slide in the seller's concession, and we teach you guys the skills how to negotiate that within the contract, that's what the DOJ wants. They want it to be negotiable. And I'm going to tell you something else they want. whether you want to hear this or not, I'm probably not going to make a lot of friends right now. They don't think that somebody that's been doing the business for 20 years as an expert should get paid the same as somebody that got their license yesterday and never handled a transaction before in their life. And that's what was happening prior to us. I think this is going to change some things as far as your level of professionalism and what you expect to earn based on your expertise. And we've heard this a lot. We're working on it as we speak. You better start learning negotiation skills. It's not that much different than what we did in commercial for a long time. If I had a buyer that wanted to buy some commercial property, which I did for 10 years, I was a commercial broker. The first thing I had to do was identify the property, call the other office and say, hey, do you have a commission in that for the seller? We'll have to call it something different now, but the practice is the same. So the first thing I would do is call the broker that had their sign in the property over at 123 Main Street that my buyer was interested in. Okay, I'm willing to pay you X%. Okay, can I get that in writing? We had a simple one-page commission agreement that I suspect Florida realtors will be working on stuff like this for us. David, I know you can't speak for them, but I suspect that's coming down the line. I think you're going to see a lot of new forms. So, I think we're really going to see your level of professionalism by default is going to have to raise the buyer's agents. And I will tell you this is also going to lead itself into listing agents now having some conversations with their sellers about the value of the MLS. We all know it is the single greatest marketplace you could possibly have, the single greatest tool you could that you could have to market a property.
It's giving their property maximum exposure.
Yep.
There's no other greater entity out there that you can put it in one spot and it's syndicated to hundreds, thousands of real estate websites out there to give it that maximum exposure. So, like we talk to agents all the time, we say, oh, well, my property's not getting showings. Well, why is it not getting showings? Well, it's either under marketed or overpriced.
That's it. So it's real simple when a property doesn't sell.
When it goes in the MLS, it's no longer under market.
That's right.
It's being syndicated to thousands of websites out there. So look at the price of that.
So when we see this new field that will probably be available to us in probably July or August, whenever we see it, we're seller concession. What does that tell you right off the bat? Okay, there's a willingness for them to offer up some extra money here. It'll have to be negotiated through the contract. And guys, understand this is fluid, it's moving. We don't have all the answers of logistically how this will be implemented right now, but I promise you we will.
Right.
Okay, understand the value of doing business with us too. Our owners have a direct ear to some pretty influential people in the industry. We have some affiliations. I don't want to go around swinging a big stick, but we get information in real time from one of people up in the top 5 brokerages in the country. So understand that. The concession, okay, just like right now, the MLS says washer and dryer.
Mm-hmm.
Agent forgot to put washer and dryer in the contract. What happens?
Well, goes by the contract.
That's
what's
right.
in the MLS.
That's right. We get this one all the time. Same thing with this concession. When there's a concession field that says, list price is X, seller will concession, willing to concession this, you're going to have to write that into the contract. Exactly. We'll have classes on it, guys. We're going to probably be doing these things on a very frequent basis for a long time. Again, it's subject to negotiation now. That's what DOJ wanted. And again, arguing that we, like David told you, for those of you that don't know, our system really wasn't broken. They decided to fix something that wasn't broken. And we were widely seen by international real estate experts as the best system on the planet for selling real estate. Ask other countries. So that day has come and gone. We're going to deal with the changes. And I think, so this is the other thing I was thinking about on the way in today. David and Amir, you guys follow me. Michael. Marcia, I see you up there too. Our head training broker is with us today. Thank you, Marcia. David, I also saw that you had over 200 people get the accredited buyers representation yesterday at the board. Fantastic job, agents. So if you called, and now that I've had a chance to dig into this, the anxiety is somewhat over from Halloween till last week as to what the changes were going to be. We know now what they're going to be. Initially, there was a lot of, oh my God, buyers agents commissions are going away. No, they're not. There may be a small percentage. But if this is an overhaul of our industry, And this is what we're going to call a tweak over here. I think we're about right here. I think this is a pivot. So I don't want you to run around, thinking that the world is over if you were specifically a buyer's agent. This is your chance to get paid what you feel is worth. And the other thing, you will go in knowing what you're getting paid, not, oh my gosh, this is a property of that property. This one's not offering anything. I've been working with this buyer for, 90 days and I've shown them 100 properties. You're going to know what you're going to get paid. And I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, exactly. And working with, so if you were that dedicated buyer's agent, maybe you have never sat down and put a list together of exactly everything you do in a transaction. Because a lot of people, and a lot of agents, you ask them, hey, what do you do as a buyer's agent? They get stuck on, well, I opened up the door and wrote the contract. But they forget about, hey, I was spent how many hours looking over an inspection report or calling around
contractors,
to get contractors,
insurance,
giving you my years of expertise when it comes to, oh, I've built relationships with these people. They're going to be great for you to work with. So those are the things that become invaluable to a buyer. And, so I think you really should sit down and put that list together so you can, prove it to the next buyer that comes across your plate.
Yeah, actually, I'm not going to mention it right now because I saw it yesterday and it's not quite ready to be launched. But there's an app out there. Remind me in about 30 days and we'll revisit it. It's nothing to do with us. I saw it, I hit it, and they said, this app is going to detail what we've done. It has it all broken out. It's a way for you to continually stay in communication about the steps of the process. And it'll have like maybe 10 steps to getting them from, the initial meeting with the buyer to, closing day.
Mhm.
And then it tells you the breakdowns in it. It's going to make it really easy for you guys. You don't have to have an app. You don't have to have anything. What you have to have is really good communication skills to let your buyers know all along. I'll never forget it. You guys had to hear one of my old war stories. One of my first 8 brokers in the business, I was working my tail off and doing all this stuff for this big property owner we had. And he said, the broker looked at me and said, that's great. You're doing an amazing job. And the owner's name was Ray. Ray loves you. Ray is going on and on about you. But Ray never knew what I was doing for him. He didn't know the hours upon hours and the relationships that I had established in my local community that he was getting the benefit of. Shame on me. We can't do that anymore. We have to take the time to detail what we've done. So when you go home at the end of the night and you're exhausted from working with a buyer, and then you're going to have to take 30 minutes and formulate an email.
Exactly.
Or work on this app or something to let them know, hey, just want to let you know, this is the steps we got accomplished today. We got your escrow in and, we scheduled inspections and all of these things.
Right.
And you got to let them know what's going on. So I want to back up 1 second to the buyer side. I think as I can see this around the corner is what I'm really trying to see here. You're going to see buyers come out or agents come out with all different levels of service.
Mm-hmm.
There might be a flat fee service for I'm going to go open doors for you, and maybe so maybe a newer agent that doesn't have the experience is working with an investor that buys and flips properties. They might get paid one thing,
right? And
you might get paid another, and then there'll be everything in between. So I think that opportunity is great. I really do. I think it's a way. David's been doing this a long time. Amir and myself been doing this a long time. When I started in the business, I was on a 50-50 split for many years because that was the only option there was. Well, I got a lot of guidance and a lot of tutoring in the business because they were getting half my money. Now we go to where we are today. There was a lot of agents that weren't getting trained right and getting mentored right and getting seasoned properly. Now you're going to have a chance to do it working for less. A first-year attorney does not get paid the same amount of money that a 20-year trial attorney does. And real estate agents are probably going to be the same working on the buyer side of things moving forward. So I think that's kind of cool. All right, let's talk about logistics of what's going to happen. And I think I told you by mid-July, the changes are looking to be implemented. If, David, I could see it getting delayed a month or two, some motions or hearings, or they're working out the fine details, but we need to be prepared for July 1. That's what we first have heard. I suspect, and we'll hear better tomorrow. Please, everybody tune into Florida Realtors tomorrow. If you've taken the time to be here, you should absolutely take the time to be on it tomorrow. And the other thing, as Amir started with us, don't get your don't get your information off of the nightly news, guys. If you're going to get your information, make sure it's coming either from us at your brokerage level. David is a good source, your board, or Florida Realtors. Right now, don't be running around hearing what the night talk show host was talking about and people celebrating over in all the way to the very top, saying we finally broke up the realtor cartel. Yeah, we don't want to hear any of that anymore, and don't listen to that stuff, guys. So I think we're going to have new listing agreements. We'll have to address some of this language, and you can bet Joanna is going to be talking about that tomorrow. New buyer rep agreements. I think you're going to see the residential contract probably changed and tweaked too, so we can build in and capture some of these concessions that we're talking about. They'll certainly be tweaked. So I think there'll be another one. And if not, there's, these forms will be provided either at the state level. Hopefully you guys have Florida Realtors. We have Florida Realtors, one of the best, the best state organization I can imagine out there. They operate pretty quick and provide us with great forms. If not, it'll be prepared, we'll be supplied by some internally, possibly some associations come out with some forms we've used over the years as well. Guys, let us do that. What Amir will cringe about right now is if you start forming your own forms. Right. And Lori's sitting over here too in compliance. She'll be like, oh my gosh, I can't look at that stuff. So you guys use our forms until you hear otherwise. Okay. You'll see, we'll be very clear to you. So now forms, and as they sit here today, we've been talking internally with a brokerage our size, forms people, compliance people, TCs. Yeah, you guys, I hope you slept last year because you're not going to sleep a whole lot. But those people are going to be busy and things are going to be changing and adapting, and you're not going to know what's okay and what's right. That's okay. Our commitment is we're going to work through it together. So I want to give you a couple things, and I'm going to rotate it around. So Michael, you be ready. David, you be ready. And Amir, you too. I didn't tell anybody. If you were a buyer's agent or you were in the business, what would you do today to understand and to make the little tweaks going forward? I'm going to go first, and then I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Understand buyer agreements. Number one, how long we've been telling them that? Since you've been here.
Yeah, almost over a year now.
Over a year, we've been saying, you guys start using your buyer agreements. And NAR's been telling us that for a decade. So start using your buyer agreements. Educate sellers on the value of offering the property in the MLS and offering a buyer's agent a commission, not through the MLS, but what you don't want is listing agents all of a sudden to start saying, we don't need the MLS. I don't need the, yeah, you do need the MLS until you can find something equivalent. You certainly do, and I don't see that. Treat buyer's appointments like listing appointments. No more about running to the property and letting you in. You've got to have a consult with these buyers. See if you two are compatible. Explain to them they're going to have to pay you and that maybe you can negotiate some of it in the contract. But if you can't, you're going to pay me and you're going to pay me X. And you can always negotiate that later. Okay. So I think your mindset and attitude is going to be the only thing holding you back here. And I think this is a phenomenal opportunity to separate yourself from the pack. I really do. Because guys, I want you to look at it like this. If I'm a listing agent and agent Byron representing the buyers comes to me and I know Byron, first thing I've done, first of all, is check Byron out. Okay, Byron's been licensed 12 years. He did 42 transactions last year. Byron knows what he's doing. Byron's asking for X amount in this contract, Mr. Seller. Byron can probably help facilitate us very well to close this. Byron doesn't work with buyers that don't really want to buy or tire kickers and stuff. So that's where you're going to establish the value of what you got. So I want to kick it over to Michael real quick. Do you have a statement for people that if you were an agent, what you would do today? You can tune it towards lending or whatever you think, Michael.
Yeah, if it's okay with you, I'll share a brief version of what I shared last time with you in the office about the team that I worked with that had, they used buyer agreements all the time religiously. Every time they would get a buyer that was interested, they would invite them into the office. They would give them a value prop. They would tell them what they're going to do to support them, to help them get in a home. And that was one thing they were really strong at. And they will have an advantage in this scenario. It was a small group, so I wouldn't worry about it. But for what you all to take away is they did a really good job of selling their value. Now, they weren't inexpensive. They charged basically they charged 4%, obviously knowing that typical contracts will net 3 or 2.5. So the buyer was actually paying an additional percent and sometimes a transaction fee. And on the lending side, I had to stay involved with that because I had to make sure that there was enough funds for the buyer to cover the difference. So those are things that you're going to have to be aware of and more creative on, is knowing how that's going to impact your buyer's bottom line and make sure it's planned for accordingly. Obviously, as Mike and Amir were talking, you can negotiate that and you can lower it later if you need to. But understanding, if you do end up receiving that full compensation, how's that going to affect the buyer's cash to close? And that's something that I can definitely help you with. That would be something I'd be really good about. I saw a comment in here about how it'll affect VA. We don't know yet. I'm currently the president for MBA, Mortgage Bankers Association of Central Florida. So as that information comes out, I'll be able to share that with y'all. But like Mike and Amir were saying, this is new. All the details have not been worked out. But those buyer's agreements are going to be critical, and partnering with your lender on how to structure these deals will be more important than ever. Those are some takeaways I have. If you need to reach me, my contact information I put in the chat, and I'll be happy to help in any way I can as you navigate this new shift.
Good stuff.
Thanks, Michael. Appreciate it. And you guys, easy to get a hold of Michael. We've got the information. It's here. Hey, David, you want to give us what you would do today if you were an agent?
Absolutely. So I'm not, but I think this will help you out tremendously just from what I've seen. Remember buyer broker agreements, and the reason we had 200 agents taking that class yesterday, and right now we are offering it for free through NAR. So get brushed up on your skills, because you may not know that buyer broker agreements can be for a single property, can be for a day, can be for 3 particular specific homes, or for a time period. So if the customer is afraid of a 6-month time period with you, and they just want one home right now that they want to be covered with, use your negotiating skills to get what you need for your family's purposes for making a living, and then helping that consumer out. And also remember, we're all still under the code of ethics. All this stuff doesn't fly out the window. You still have to cooperate with your peers. Non-cooperation, all tools that we have are nested in the MLS, and they're nested in our code of ethics. So you still have to cooperate. And probably one of my #1 phone calls every Monday morning, is super fun for me, is I tried to call this listing agent. No one will call me back. And my buyer wants this home, and they have all the money, and they're ready to go, and they have financing, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's not cooperating. You signed up for a job that is 24/7, and so I get there's some guideposts to that. But for days and days and days, if you don't call somebody back, that's not cooperating in my book. So #2 is use the tools. RPR, use that with buyers. Just like Mike said, treat it like you're on a listing appointment. RPR reports are absolutely amazing for the buyer side. If they're interested in a property, it tells you everything about that property. Historically, NAR bought data for like the last 35 years, I think. Actually, I think further back than that. My home is 40 years old, and there's a picture of the original kitchen on a 40-year-old home that they were able to pull together. So it's a great tool for you. The ABR class, understanding negotiating and understanding how to use that agreement, because I think Florida Realtors over time will legislatively, this is someplace where we can really win because our members vote. There are little things that we might fix over time with Congress and with the Florida legislature. Somebody asked a very pointed question about VA. Well, the VA buyer is not allowed to pay a commission. The seller must pay it. And so you've had to ask for that before. So there's nothing different today. And I wouldn't be afraid of asking for that. Negotiating skills, I think it's going to be super, super critical. And it's something that even in my profession, I'm a finance major, unless you're a poli-science major or studying to be a attorney, you just don't have classes that really focus on good negotiating skills. So brush up on negotiating with your peers. You got plenty of peers at CRR, practice with someone who's really skilled at it. And don't be afraid of asking, hey, is the seller willing to pay something? Even if it's a part of what the buyer broker agreement is to fulfill that. It gets the 2 parties to the closing table. Consumer demand. This is the one that people say, oh, well, buyer's agents are going to go away, and all that hysteria that was on the news right after this came out. We have 7 million properties short of the current demand. We cannot build them. We cannot manufacture these homes to meet 7 million shy of the demand. And so this weighs in our favor. So this weighs in your favor to service buyers and to the highest level you can. And so use that skill set in your marketing. And then somebody asked that specific question about commissions being communicated. Now we're still trying to figure out the exact extent of how commissions can we have a profit company that's separate from Pinellas Realtor Organizations and not part of NAR. Can we use that to help you guys facilitate commissions? Can your brokerage advertise it? Can you individually advertise it on your website? As long as right now, from what we understand, is it's not a derivative of the MLS. So the IDX feed that flows through the MLS and comes to your personal website, no, that part you can't. But could you have a blanket statement that, these 5 homes and list them? My seller is willing to pay a commission. From what we understand right now, that is permittable and will be permittable. I know this is crazy because it's not realtor.com or one of the big portals communicating this out. So it makes it very, very complicated to kind of understand, because if you have a buyer that can't afford to pay it at all, you can't search the MLS and say who's willing to pay. So it gets very, very complicated, and it's very unfair for that buyer that's just in that place that they can't pay it. Similar to a VA, you've got the same situation. If a VA buyer is looking for something in the MLS, well, under these new rules, good luck in finding the needle in the haystack, the person who says, yeah, I'm willing to pay that for this VA buyer. So it makes it very, very complex. And then all these things kind of flow under this kind of transparency in that, say your seller wants to be hard up front and say, I'm not paying a commission to anybody, blah, 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 blah. And they don't offer commission. Then they're sitting on this $10,000 a month mortgage payment, and the wife or husband find another home and they want to move into it. Now they don't want 2 $10,000 mortgage payments, and they turn down the first 3 people. Nope, I'm not paying a commission. If you're not willing to get it from, if the buyer is not willing to pay it, then I'm not willing to play in that game. And then the 4th person comes along because they're tired of paying 4 mortgage payments of $10,000 on the old property. And then they decide, yeah, let's just pay this commission. I want to get rid of this. Well, what does that person look like? Is that person among the class of protected class of people that now has been potentially discriminated? So there's all kinds of things that are going to pop out of this that we don't have to deal with today, like we will have to deal with going forward. So, but think about those things that I talked about, the buyer broker agreement, use it and maximize it for all those different pieces. If a consumer doesn't want to do a time, just do that singular piece of property. If that's all you can get at that point in time with a buyer that's unfamiliar with the practice, the tools, your negotiation skills, and then there's the general demand of consumers. I think we get through this. We're just going to have to learn how to do new things under new rules until it's perfected.
Yep. All right, Mayor, what would you do today if you were working?
You guys kind of put everything, everything out there that I would have typically done. But it all comes down to getting familiar with the buyer brokerage agreement and really being able to articulate to your buyers what you can offer to them. And like you said, Mike, there's going to be a slew of new ways forward, whether it's, you're offering a flat fee or you're, offering a la carte menu of items, things along those lines. But, for me, I would get in that ABR class, learn my buyer brokerage agreement, brush up on my negotiation skills. I think it's very important to role play with other agents. So that way you can really, just spit it off your tongue when you're talking to a buyer, because you need to sound confident when you're doing it. At the end of the day, I've been using buyer brokerage agreements, for almost my entire career. So, I have the talk track down. I've never, really strayed away from it. And just like David said, and that's how I always coached agents on, you can do it for a day. you can do it for a property. You know, if you have somebody flying in that weekend that just called you from Zillow, hey, we're coming in this weekend. Okay, here's my buyer brokerage agreement. You know, I know you may have some hesitation about signing one for a length of period of time, but this is just for the weekend. We're going to see, you know, 123 Main Street. We're going to see 234 Sally Street, and these are the ones we're going to show. Sign it, boom, done, and this gets us in the property. Covers everybody across the board, so we can continue moving forward.
Yeah, and it's going to be an MLS property. So remember, no buyer is going to get in there without a signed agreement. The MLS will have some kind of things in place to make sure that happens. So you're not that far out. So guys, we're getting down to, we want to get some questions. I got one, excuse me. Dates. Marcia's classes dates. April 16th, May 1st. Buyers, brokers, agreements. Marcia, thank you for posting that. I got tripped up there a little bit. Hey, listen, maybe you guys, Marcia listen, the feedback we're getting on her classes are phenomenal. She's an amazing instructor. Maybe you guys start some role playing in there with how to, you know, pitch that thing out. Maybe have some stuff like that. I think would be a good thing to do.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. And I will offer those classes. Basically, I'm sharing everything that I'm learning at our great MLS Pro. They're doing a great job. I'm going to be in GRI training series 200 and 300. I've had the ABR, and anytime they come out with anything new, I try to stay on the cutting edge for our agents with that. A lot of good interaction. If you'd like negotiating classes, we can do that as well. But I've found in my own practice, if you let your customers know the value you're offering while you have that leverage, you can do your business as you're doing it. I'm taking a listing today, and she's happy to offer the cooperating compensation. I've done FSBOs where I get the seller to sign a commission agreement. And as David was saying, if they won't sign the buyer brokerage agreement, there's always the showing agreement. And in my class, I go line by line. So you all will be very comfortable using these tools. You know, it's got to be in writing to be enforceable. So this is a way to nail it down so that, you know, when you go to closing, you're going to be happy with your paycheck. So anyway, thanks for having me, and come to class. We'll stay on top of supporting our agents. Your success is our success. So we want to see you thrive.
Absolutely. And, you know, these classes aren't a one and done. They're going to be evolving. They're going to be fluid. So just because you caught one of Marcia's classes a month later, there might be a whole different set of information in there. Quickly, I want to address some questions that are right in front of me. Alicia Savis has asked a question. Alicia, thank you. One of our best and brightest around here. Okay, the question is, you'll have seen it, if an MLS, wait a minute, I want to talk about if MLS mechanisms are not permitted to have compensation displayed, is there a legal way to have compensation linked to an outside website with the compensation listed, or would that be a violation? David addressed that some. This is got to shake out. Now, at this time, my understanding is we can share information internally right here. When you have a brokerage of 2,400 agents, I think we have a value proposition to agents right there. So that is my understanding. David, I will get legal advice before this all shakes out and I do anything like that. But I'm reasonably sure what you can't do, what I understand, as I understand it, I should say, is any IDX feed that comes from the MLS. That would, a blanket feed that would show other brokerages compensation, or that is going to be strictly forbidden, is the way I understand it. So we'll move forward. This will be stuff that's evolving, but that's a really a good question, and we're going to work on that. But so what's going to happen is there'll be a lot of phone calls, guys. And like David said, you need to answer your phone, because you're going to see a property and your buyer's going to want to go show this property, and you're going to have to pick up the phone, call the listing agent. Hey, or look in the seller concession field. There's going to be a lot of phone calls and seeing where things are at. We'll figure that out as we go. But I just want to really reiterate, guys, the media has said that, you know, this is going to cut commissions in half and all of that. There's no evidence to show that. We all know that sellers are willing to pay a fair commission for fair services. They want the property sold, and that will all change. All right, a commission. All right, Sarah Austin, another question. Commission amount to be paid by selling broker included in the listing agreement, ? And listing agreement can now be attached in MLS. Great workaround, but I can tell you, these folks that have made this settlement agreement or proposed settlement agreement have thought all of these little angles through. The real short answer to that is absolutely not. We're going to have this is exactly what the DOJ does not want. They don't want the seller and the seller's agent dictating to the buyer's agent how much it's going to be. So so that field won't even be in your listing agreement, Sarah. That field will be gone. There will be no place in that agreement for them to offer a buyer's agent money. That is, I haven't seen this agreement yet, but I would be knocked over with a feather if that field was still left in there. All right. What do we got, Byron? You got any more questions over here that we need to try and?
There's a lot.
There's a lot. All right.
We'll go through everything, but important date, April 24th.
April 24th. Yeah, let's take a break for some fun stuff. Guys, come on by the, David, you're included too. You're one of us. We're having a realtor open house here. Byron will be bringing the barbecue, the burgers and brats and all kinds of stuff. We have one of our agents that plays and performs around at local venues. Will be providing some entertainment. We're going to have a bunch of door prizes that you just show up for. Plus, we're raffling off the owners of the company's home plate club tickets.
Right.
Pretty cool tickets, man.
Very cool.
Y'all ever watch the game like sitting directly behind home plate where you can literally feel the breeze of the fastball? That's where you're at. Buffets and all. We're going to have that as well. And Byron has lined us up free headshots. So if you guys need to update your picture for your buyer's agreements that you're all going to be using, we're going to have free headshots for you. So don't save the date. It's 11 to 3 right here in our parking lot. We're going to have tents. We're going to have fun. Come on out. And it'd be a good time to kick some of these ideas around.
And
Oh, yes. And go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, it benefits Clearwater Little League.
Yep.
So, all the donations that come through that day will definitely go right to them. They're phenomenal, I grew up with Clearwater Little League. I'm sure most of the people here that grew up in Clearwater did the same thing.
Right, right. We're trying to do some good in the hood with the kids and keeping it right here local. All right. What, you got another vetted out question for us here? Right at the top. How will transaction broker model be affected? What happens when I have a listing side and get the buyer? That's a good, Karsten. That's a great question. And TBD.
Yeah.
We've been thinking about it. I wake up all the time thinking about it. I think that would be a question to definitely, Karsten, be tuned into Joanna and her team tomorrow, talking about agency, laws of agency. I suspect we're going to see some changes. I don't know how quickly they will get implemented, but I suspect that the transaction model could very well be affected. There's not a lot of states that still have transaction brokerage. Some people don't like it. We'll see where that goes. All right. Yovi, a question. Once the changes take effect, what happens when the buyer does not want to work with a realtor and still wants to see your listing? Well, they're not going to see a listing without signing an agreement with somebody. The thing is, you're going to have to, negotiate. Maybe this buyer's really hard and they want to get in the house. Well, maybe they sell you, they got, $5 for a commission for the buyer's agent or something. They're going to, that's the part of the pressure that I think is going to help you get a commission is the buyers want to get in the MLS listed property. They're going to have to sign an agreement. David, am I right here with that answer?
Yeah, seems correct to me.
Okay, all right. I didn't think I was missing anything. All right. How will another one from Alicia, how will the buyer agreement apply to open houses? For example, when you host an open house, will every attendee have to sign an agreement before entering the home? Amir, David, you want to jump on? David touched on this. I don't think we have answers for this currently. We're going to have to seek some guidance and some counseling.
Yeah, they're just looking. So now if they pursue further, they want to put in an offer, then you would have an agreement with them for whatever they're willing to offer. Think about it like when you go to a new community, before you let your buyer go to that community, you better be there with them and have an agreement in place because the community say, oh, you're not the realtor record for this person, so we're not going to talk to you. So, you kind of have to think about it like that. Now, we may have some more rules as this progresses about how that works. when people come into a open house. Maybe there is much more clarity that will happen. Maybe they must sign in and state that they're not working currently with a buyer broker agreement with another agent. I saw that was a question. I couldn't find it again, but that gets tricky, and I'm allowed to ask, have you engaged another broker via buyer broker agreement? And are you obligated to someone else? I told you we get calls where seniors that are not in their full capacity have signed 2 listing agreements with 2 separate brokers. So guess what? They owe 2 commissions. And the court of law will probably back it up. They signed it just because they were not capable. That may have to be proven, but I think we'll get some more clarity as we get closer.
I would agree, David, but you know what? Again, as we try to see all the wrinkles and how this lays out, that just hit me really right square between the eyes. If a buyer wants to see a property now, open houses might get much more well-attended, guys. If, all those times you ran an open house and just the neighbor came over, you might get a slew of people now, because it might be one way they can get in there without having to sign that. All right, is the current this is from Marianne Mattioli. Hi, Marianne, we love you. Is this current exclusive buyer's broker agreement that is in the dashboard the proper form that you are referring to? It is the proper form to use today.
Right.
I suspect tomorrow we'll hear something different. I can tell you, we will not have it in our dashboard if it's not the right form to use at any given day. So yeah, we don't have new forms yet, but they're probably coming. Not probably, they are. I just don't know exactly when. What does this do to dual agency open houses, Debbie Schmidt? We don't do dual agency here. Open houses, we just talked. What if the buyer doesn't want to sign this? And how do we document the agreed commission? Okay, document the agreed commission now will have to be outside the MLS, as we know. As we discussed earlier, there will be ways it will either be negotiated. The way you're going to document it is have maybe 2 separate agreements. So one will be your buyer's agreement with that buyer saying how much you're going to get, that they're on the hook to pay you. And then if you can negotiate some of it through the contract, maybe in a seller concession, that your buyer will then have to pay you. We're going to see this is going to unfold. And how you're going to document it is, let's say you, I think it's going to be documented by your agreement with the buyer's agreement, and then the conciliary thing will be a contract that the buyer is getting some money on. You got an input on that?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have, the buyer brokerage agreement, but, I think, what you're saying is, what if the buyer doesn't want to sign this? Well, if they don't want to sign it, well, then you have no
You're not working with them.
You're not working with them. So, I would stop talking to them, because they're not going to work with you so you can get paid. And that's where you got to go back to being able to articulate your value proposition there, and what you bring to the table. I think with open houses, how that's going to work is maybe when they sign in, or there's going to be another document that they do sign when they come into the open house that states I'm the listing agent, or whoever I am, and I work for the seller. So that you're disclosing to them who exactly you are and what your duty is, and that you don't represent them. So if they do ask you questions, you're working on behalf of the seller at that.
Yeah, exactly. There's not going to be an option to not have an agreement. They don't want to sign an agreement, then you ain't working with them. Stop.
Sorry, and just like, I don't know how a lot of people hold open houses, but I used to get the question, well, somebody came to my open house and they didn't want to sign in. Okay, well then ask them to leave, because you have a duty to protect that property, and they need to sign it. So, present them with the disclosure, have them sign it. If they don't want to, well, I'm sorry, you can't come to the open house.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to quickly shoot Alicia one more. Will an agent be able to decide not to show a home to a buyer if they're not compensated through the seller? Well, that's going to be moot, because prior to that even happening, Alicia, you're going to have a signed buyer's agreement, right? So that's moot at that point. So if you have a signed buyer agreement that's saying they're paying you X, and you get something less than X negotiated in the contract, you'll get the rest of it through your buyer's agreement. Yeah. All right, guys, listen, one thing I learned about meetings a long time ago, start them on time and stop them on time. Thank you all for being here. I have some closing thoughts. 4.5 million, somewhere north of 4.5 million homes are going to transfer ownership this year in the United States. You cannot tell me that every single one of those that are listed on the MLS will not pay a buyer's commission. I think there will be a small percentage. I don't think it'll be a huge percentage. There's a little factor here that some people forget to mention whatsoever, and that's called the free market. I remember in 2009, 2010, I was getting hefty commissions and $20,000 bonuses and $30,000 bonuses from sellers, like David told you, those scenarios that they have to sell. So when you have so let's just take some history and look at this real quick. We just had the craziest sellers market we've ever had since I've been working this business 30 years, okay? We just had it during COVID. They were still paying commissions. If it were me at that time and I saw what I saw, I would have probably gone and put a sign in my yard and gotten 48 offers by dark. They didn't have to sell a commission because it was pay a buyer's commission because it was such a seller's market. They still did. The willingness is there. Guys, we see the market tipping back a little bit, don't we? I see David, I see listings are going up every day in the MLS. So when it becomes more of a buyer's market, you watch those sellers' willingness to throw money at them. So don't worry about that. The sky's not falling, okay? Well, MLS sellers, we're gonna hold off on that one. Won't pay, all right. So here's the deal, CRR remains committed. David, jump in.
Hey, did you know that the 82,000 members in Stellar MLS, thousands of listings every month, already didn't pay you anything? They were entry-only listings by a company that just charges the seller a fee to put it in MLS and then puts $1 in the commission. Now it's zero, but what's the difference? So we have already had thousands of these for years. And so it happens already. So if somebody wants to play in that space or do a for sale by owner, there already a mechanism for that at play. But remember, like 90% of consumers are still using realtor members because it's a complicated transaction. They don't want to deal with all the headaches of it. So be that trusted advisor for people. People are willing to pay a commission. 10 years in a row, our survey says that they're willing to pay a commission if you help them determine the price and negotiate the deal. And so that's what they want from you. They didn't say that they would want pay you a lesser commission if you did those things. They were willing to pay the full commission, whatever that means, your fee. So I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, David. Surveys have shown over and over, Americans are willing to pay a fair price for a fair service if they see value in it. That's where Amir has been telling you for a year. You got to get your value proposition out there and be able to convey it properly. That's where Marcia can help you in those classes. Charles Ruttenberg Realty remains committed to you guys to provide the best real estate platform, I believe, in the state for you to conduct your business. Trust us when I tell you, we wake up thinking about this. We go to bed thinking about this. I will have a meeting with the owner of the company later, and we will talk more about this. It will be going on day by day. I promise you, our commitment to you is that. My commitment to you is to remain vigilant, guys. I promise you, every day, I understand the gravity of what we're doing here. You guys have bills that are due today and tomorrow, and your business model got changed a little bit on you. I don't take that lightly. None of us do around here. We're all in this together. I promise you, we're here for you, and we're not sleeping at the wheel, okay? I believe the industry will be stronger and more powerful after the other side of this. I really believe that. We have been complaining about a lack of professionalism by a small percent of the agents. This will weed a lot of them out. I'm sorry to tell you that, but it will. I believe the cream rises to the top. And I give you the opportunity to rise as high as you want and propose your value. I really believe this, and I'm going to end it with this, guys. Hey, real quick, if you have, we're going to start these much more frequently as the information comes out. We'll start these. Let us know in the comments. We'll probably start them at least monthly, bi-weekly, something, maybe even up to weekly. Yeah. But I will end it with this, and I appreciate all of you. I appreciate you being on here. I truly believe our best days are ahead of us. Okay, so we'll see you all and we'll keep you informed. Again, thanks, everybody.